Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this session we will be looking at an example of your auto scaling group. We will look at how you can work with your fixed capacity. So we'll have an example. Now in this last session we looked at your introduction to auto scaling groups, understanding what your auto scaling groups are. So once again, auto scaling groups can be used when you want to manage the scaling up and scaling down of your capacity, EC2 instances in this case. We can make use of your auto scaling groups for that. Now in this session we'll look at examples. We'll be covering two examples. One is going to be your fixed capacity, and then in the next session we will be covering your scaling capacity, how you can scale up and scale down dynamically. Once again, before I start off with the session, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So before we start off with this, let's look at what are the different types of scaling groups, or there are different ways that we can scale up your auto scaling groups. So one is your maintaining the fixed number of instances, and this is the example that we are going to look at. Now under this, essentially what happens is your auto scaling group will maintain a fixed size for us. For example, let's say 5 EC2 instances. So that size is going to be fixed, and the auto scaling group will maintain that size for us. So here we will not be having any scaling policies or any actions, and this is going to be the default one. By default, when we are creating the auto scaling group, this is what you will get. The next option we have is scaling manually. So under this, you will be manually launching the instances, and then you'll be updating the auto scaling group. So this is the most basic way to scale your auto scaling group. So under this, auto scaling group will not launch new instances automatically. We will have to manually launch the instances and then add them to the auto scaling group. The next option we have is scaling based on a schedule. Now we also have this option wherein uh, if you if you see that there's going to be an increase in demand on a certain duration, like let's say maybe next week or maybe tomorrow, you can schedule the scaling of your capacity. So this is, basically performing the scaling up automatically as a function of your date and time. So this can be useful when you know exactly when there is an increase in demand or the decrease in demand. The next option we have is scaling based on demand. So this is scaling up your instances dynamically. So under this, auto scaling group lets us define a scaling policy as to when do you want to scale up or scale down. So, for example, let's say based on the CPU utilization. So once we define that scaling policy, auto scaling group will dynamically resize the capacity based on the demand, based on the increase in traffic or decrease in traffic. And the last option we have is scaling proactively. So here we will be combining the predictive scaling and your dynamic scaling to scale your EC2 capacity faster. So it's basically using your scaling based on your demand. So again, your EC2 will scale up based on the demand, but also it will be proactive. So instead of scaling up when the demand is there, it will be proactive enough. It will predict the scaling and then launch the instances for us. So these are the different options we have when we talk about your auto scaling group. Now in this particular session, we will be looking at maintaining a fixed number of instances. So we'll look at an example for that. So like I said, this is the default option when we talk about your auto scaling groups, and with this we will not be having any scaling policies attached, or we won't be scheduling any action. So this will give us a fixed number of instances. So after we create our auto scaling group, it starts launching enough instances to meet the desired capacity. So here we will specify the capacity as to how many instances you want, and your auto scaling group will start launching that many instances, and then it will maintain those instances for us. So let's say I want 3 instances. The auto scaling group will maintain that instance for us. So if there are no scaling conditions attached, like a scaling policy, if you're not attaching that, then the auto scaling group will maintain this desired capacity even if the instance becomes unhealthy. So let's say there's an issue with this particular instance or any of these instance, so your auto scaling group will monitor these instances. So there's a health check that your auto scaling group does, and whenever any of these instance becomes unhealthy, your auto scaling group will automatically launch a new instance to maintain that fixed number of instances capacity for us. All right. So Amazon EC2, so like I said, it monitors the health of each of these instances in your auto scaling group. And whenever it finds that an instance has become unhealthy, so let's say, for example, this particular instance has become unhealthy. So my auto scaling group will replace this instance with a new instance, which is a healthy instance. So, that's where maintaining a fixed number of instances can be utilized. So no matter what the demand is, no matter what the traffic is, you always want to have a fixed number of instances, then you can go with this option. So let's look at an example for this. So here I have my AWS console. Now, before we start creating your auto scaling group, the first thing we will have to define is your template. Now, we know that your auto scaling group will launch new instances, but what configurations your auto scaling group will use? So, what AMI it needs to use, which instance type it needs to use, which key pair to attach. So, we will need to provide all those information. So, that is where we make use of launch template. So earlier we used to have an option called launch configuration. We still have that option, but AWS is recommending that we use this launch template. So the first step would be for us to create a template that my auto scaling group can use to launch new instances for us. So how do we create your launch template? So you can click on this, and this is an example. You can say I've created one. So likewise, you can start creating a new template. So let's give it a name. You also have the option of giving it a version like 1.0, 2.0, and then so on. So let's call this as 1.0, right? And then you have the option of adding tags as well. So let's give it a tag, and let's call this as auto scaling instance. You can add whatever you want. And if you want, you also have the option of using an existing template. So here you can choose your existing template. So next we'll need to specify your AMI. So we will use, let's say, the Amazon Linux AMI. Then we'll need to specify your instance type. So in our case, we are going with the T2.micro. The key pair that we will be attached with the instance will specify the key pair, your firewall. So, like as you see, we are simply specifying your template. This will not launch in instances for us, but just a template will be created. So you can specify your storage, your resource tags. You have the option of specifying your role that you want to attach, any user data that you want to write. All these can be defined over here. And once you're done filling these details, you can go ahead and click on this create launch template, and this will just create a template for us. So here a template will be created, and we can start using this. So whenever my auto scaling group will wants to launch a new instance, it will utilize this launch template to launch the instances, and whatever the configuration we have defined as to the AMI, the instance type, the key pair, the security group, my auto scaling group will launch instances with this respective configurations. So this will be a step one. Once you're done creating your launch templates, you can go to your auto scaling group. So here you can see at the bottom, you should be able to find these auto scaling groups, and we'll begin with creating an auto scaling group. So we can give it a name, and then you can see here the launch template. Like I said, there's also an option of using the launch configuration, but this is an older way. I wouldn't recommend you to use this. Maybe in the future, this option may not be there, but however, you still have this option. But we're not going to use this option. We'll go with this launch template. And here on the drop down, you should be able to see the launch template that we've just created. So this is the launch template we're going to use. You should be able to review the configuration. Next, we'll specify the VPC. So as of now, we are going with the default VPC, and then in which availability zones you want these instances. So based on the number of instances you're going to launch, if you want to make your instances highly available, it is recommended to go with multi-AZ, so that your auto scaling group will spread your instances across this availability zones. Once you're done filling these details, next, you also have the option of integrating this with the load balancer. We're not looking at this point of time. And here is the health check that we were talking about. So health checks, this will be enabled always we won't be able to change it. Next, this is where you specify the capacity. So, what's your desired capacity? So, let's say I'll go with 3 instances. So, I'm telling I want 3 instances. And here is your scaling. So, as of now, we don't have any scaling policies. We are going with the fixed number of instances. So, I want 3 instances no matter what the load is or no matter what the traffic is. So, I want 3 instances. Next, you also have the option of adding notification. So, whenever an instance is terminated and your auto scaling group launches new instances, if you want to get notified, you have the option of adding it. SNS is a different service altogether. I'll be covering this at a later point of time. So as of now, I'm not going to add any notifications. You can add your tags. So let's call this as auto scaling demo. And then next you get to review. So what template you're using, the VPC, the health checks, the size that you have defined, all these things you can review, and then click on create auto scaling group. Now, before I do that, let me open up this EC2 in a different tab, and under this running instances, you can see I don't have any instances as of now. So the moment when I click on this create auto scaling group, what will happen is the auto scaling group will start creating the instances, the number that we have specified here. Auto scaling group will start creating that many instances for us. So give it some time. It may take a few seconds or a minute, but here you can see the status: 3 instances, desired capacity, the template we are using. You should be able to see all these details, the availability zones, and my auto scaling group should start launching the instances. So here you can see I have 3 instances which are launched by the auto scaling group. So this is the number, the desired capacity that I've defined. So my auto scaling group is simply launching that many instances for us. And you can look at the tags if you want. So here you can see this is coming from the auto scaling group. So this will clearly tell us that this instance was launched by an auto scaling group. So at any point, if you have multiple instances over here, and if you're not sure as to which instance is managed by your auto scaling group, this is one we can look at the tags. You can also look at your auto scaling group. So here also you should be able to see which instances your auto scaling group is managing. So activity, you should be able to see, it's like a kind of a logs. So if an instance was terminated or launched, you should be able to see all that information over here. And you can see here the instance IDs, the start time, the end time. You can also see the instance management, so which instances your auto scaling group is managing. So here these are the 3 instances, and that's your health status. So your auto scaling group will continuously monitor the health of these instances. All right, now so that's basically how you can launch your instances by making use of your auto scaling groups. Now let's say something happened and one of this instance was terminated, or it is no longer working, and we had to go ahead and terminate that instance. Now what will happen in this case? Now, because of the number that we have specified, the desired capacity as 3, so in this case here you see this desired capacity, my auto scaling group will get to know that one of the instance has become unhealthy. So here we'll give it some time, but there's a grace period associated with this, so this will take some time. Though we have terminated the instance over here, my auto scaling group will take some time to find that out. But as you can see here, it is still showing healthy. So I have instance ID ending with 9C and then B6, which is 9C and B6. So this particular instance is terminated, right? So let's give it some time, and you will see that my auto scaling will get to know that this instance is unhealthy and it is no longer running. And what will happen is this will trigger my auto scaling group to launch a new instance because of the capacity that we have defined over here, right? So we have defined 3, but then my auto scaling group will understand that there are only 2 instances. So it will basically make sure that it always maintains this fixed number of instance for us. So let's give it some time. Like I said, this should start launching a new instance. So first, this auto scaling group will need to know whether this instance is terminated or not. So that's gonna take some time. I'm gonna pause my video here. Okay, so now you can see the health status, it says unhealthy. So that means now my auto scaling group is telling me that, okay, I'm not able to find this instance, and this has been marked as unhealthy. And now what will happen is my auto scaling group will launch a new instance. So it will basically replace that instance, that particular instance, with a new instance. So let's again give it some time. This will take some time, so I should be able to see a new instance. So you can see here initializing, so that's the instance 6b6, which is your 6b6. So now what has happened here is, because of the desired capacity that we have defined, auto scaling group went ahead and created a new instance to make sure it maintains that fixed number of instances for us. So this is how we can make use of your auto scaling groups if you want to maintain a fixed number of instances. So let's say, for example, if all the three instances are terminated, even then my auto scaling group will start launching the instances one after the other to maintain that capacity for us, whatever the capacity that we have defined. So now if you look at this activity, we should be able to see, so you can see here an instance was taken out of service in response to an EC2 health check indicating it has been terminated or stopped. And because of this, it went ahead and launched a new instance to replace the unhealthy instance. All right, so this is where your auto scaling group can be useful when you want to manage this instance capacity, right? You can make use of your auto scaling. So even if, let's say, someone by mistake went ahead and terminated an instance or stopped an instance, my auto scaling group will ensure that it will automatically launch new instances to maintain our fixed capacity. Now, when you're working with this, please don't delete the instances from here. Once you're done working with this, please don't terminate the instances from here. Just delete your auto scaling group, and that should terminate the instances. So in this case, if I go ahead and delete this, so let me confirm this, and this should start terminating the instances. So if you're practicing this, if you terminate the instances from the instances section, your auto scaling group will keep on launching the instances. So please, once you're done working with this, please don't delete the instances from here. Just go and delete your auto scaling group. That will terminate the instances for us. So you can see here shutting down, so the instances will be terminated. So that's basically how we can work with your auto scaling groups to maintain a fixed number of instances. In the next session, we will be looking at how you can define a scaling policy, and then we'll utilize your CPU to scale up your instances automatically. That's all for this session. Thank you. Once again, before you leave, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you like the video, leave a like and please share the video.